Minnesota lawmakers are mulling over THC beverages on tap and marijuana license cap. Oh, those both rhyme.
As a rapper now.
So, Minnesota operators could sell low THC beverages on tap if changes this week made to the state's 2023 adult use marijuana law are finalized. Though Native American tribes in Minnesota started selling recreational products in August, the state's full adult use market isn't expected to open until early 2025 as lawmakers continue to debate edits to the legislation. Among the tweaks approved by the House Finance Committee and Policy Committee earlier this week on Wednesday is the allowing of popular low THC beverages derived from hemp to be sold on tap. How cool is that, right? You're going to go to a watering hole and someone's going to open up a tap and give you a cannabis beverage. I think that's kind of cool. I think it's definitely progressive. I don't know of any other state that's moving towards that because they're already selling low THC stuff at liquor stores, and I guess they'll be able to sell now kegs. So a keg of some cannabis beverage that you can come in and have a keg party with. Isn't that cool? I think that's cool. Awarding social license or social equity licenses via a vetted lottery. Well, let's see how smooth that goes, Rico? Rather than a merit-based system, right? So a vetted lottery versus a merit-based system. Oh boy, that's going to be crookeder than a dog's hind leg, right? Despite criticism from social equity advocates that the large out-of-state retailers could basically game the system, right? And there are a lot of out-of-state folks coming into Minnesota just because the laws are so progressive. So the other points is that they want to allow medical marijuana patients to grow up to 16 plants. Woohoo! 16 plants, pretty sizable garden, right, per adult. For the first, and up to 8 allowed under the adult use regulations. So I guess, that's pretty significant, at least. I think that's significant. Regulators are also asking lawmakers to impose a license cap for the first 2 years recreational sales. So I guess unlike a THC cap, they just want to cap the number of licenses so the people who have gotten in and who've made investments can basically start to get a return on that investment. So Charlene Briner, the state's Office of Cannabis Management's interim director, is requesting a limit of no more than 200 retail licenses, 50 cultivation permits, 24 manufacturing licenses, and 44 mezzo businesses, whatever those are, which permits small-scale cultivation as well as manufacturing and scale. So I don't know what a mezzo business is, but I guess we'll find out. So half of those licenses would be reserved for social equity applicants. Cultivation canopies for mezzo businesses would be capped at 15,000 square feet. Maybe that's what sort of differentiates the mezzo business from the other 50 cultivation permits. So there's going to be 44 of those mezzo businesses and 50 of the cultivation permits with 24 manufacturing licenses. There would be no limit on micro business license, which I didn't mention above, but which are similar to mezzo businesses permits, except for a 5,000 square foot cap on cultivation. So I guess they have even a lower level. So it's like mezzo businesses at 15,000, micro businesses at 5,000. I wonder if they're going to have a nano business category here coming up. Probably not. So micro businesses are also permitted on-site consumption and live entertainment. How cool is that, right? The full legislature must sign off on the committee's changes before becoming law. Well, if you actually go to the comments that they made on the Gov site, on the mngov.site, what you'll see is that, there's other notable provisions. Not all of these are good. Let me know what you think. Dale, I'd be really interested just in your opinion on some of these. So allow THC beverages to be sold on tap. Okay, we've already talked about that. Make changes in testing procedures to measure THC level in employees. What? What? That seems like a couple steps back from a progressive, legislation like this. Establish a new approval process for cannabinoids to be designated as non-intoxicating. Well, I guess for like what? For CBG and CBN and those. So this is what I was speaking before. I think what they're thinking about is how to merge these markets together, and maybe save the intoxicating stuff for the cannabis licenses, but let the hemp players play in this non-intoxicating space. So remove all background checks, which sounds great. So they're kind of like loosening things up. Prohibit the sale of lower potency hemp edibles to an obviously intoxicated person. Well, how does the internet know who's obviously intoxicated? Or are they going to train dispensary and liquor store employees to identify somebody who's already intoxicated on cannabis and not let them buy cannabis beverages? That seems a little weird to me. Let's see. Oh, this is another thing that seems weird. Permit products having hemp or having only hemp-derived cannabinoids be sent out of state for testing? What? Why are they sending their hemp things out of state? That seems stupid. That seems like, what, are they trying to discourage making hemp things? Well, when you have beverages that basically qualify as hemp, because you could put 10 milligrams in a 12-ounce beverage and still get loaded on it if it's in a nano-emulsified form, still seems to be like that can still be derived from hemp. So why would they make those people send stuff out of state to be tested? Doesn't make any sense, right? This is very interesting. I've never heard of this before. Maybe you guys have heard of this. Prohibit selling empty cannabis packaging that looks like an existing brand. So I know there's a lot of that on the internet. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but you could buy knockoff cookies packaging and knockoff packaging of other more popular brands. And so they're specifically prohibiting that. So I haven't heard about that before. And just this last bullet point is specify how the medical cannabis program would be transferred to the Office of Cannabis Program Management, giving the office authority and access to data and to facilitate that transfer. Well, I think that has crashed and burned in several other states, right, Dr. T? It's not necessarily good to take the medical program as it is in a medical state and end it and just fold that into your adult use recreational, right, Dale? That's train wrecked, I know, in a couple other states. So there are some points in this legislation I think make a lot of sense, but other points that don't make any sense at all. But I'd be interested in what my other correspondents have to say. That's my story today on Great Friday from the shores of Lake Champlain here in Colchester, Vermont. I'd be interested in what you all have to say about this story. Dr. Mark here.
Yeah, Dr. Mark, there's a lot going on there. It sounds like they're trying to create a mini FDA in the state to identify cannabinoids, right? Which is the same thing Utah's do. Look, nature abhors a vacuum, and if the Fed won't do it, the states are trying. What's interesting is there may be some interesting science that comes from some of this. At the very least, we can point at it as something that the Fed might take up, or please don't do that. Look how bad it's failed. At least it's an example in the wild of what happens. I also hear, like, let's regulate cannabis like hemp, welling up inside me of the harder we keep making it for cannabis companies and the easier we keep making it for hemp companies. It's the same plant. The other concern that I have, though, look, intoxication is about behavior and action, not which substance got you there. It could just be you're too damn tired and you are more of a danger on the road than somebody with 8 illegal substances in their system. Texting is more dangerous than any of these things in your system. So we're talking about behavior while you're on the road. I also want to point out that when you ingest cannabinoids, that the saliva tests, the blood tests barely bump. It barely registers. and yet you are the most, quote, intoxicated under edibles for the longest amount of time. When you inhale, it is a short, fast duration, and then it's over about 20 minutes later. You have a huge spike on the saliva and blood test, and then it's gone. Well, it's still there. I'm talking about the active metabolites, but that spike doesn't happen with edibles. So just throw the tests out. This is not like blood alcohol content tests. Those are scientifically proven. These are not. And so this really does boil down to drug recognition experts. I would rather see an iPad that you have to do certain things so fast on the iPad than a saliva swab. I think we would get way more terrible drivers off the road that are also on Ambien and whatever else is legal, but you still shouldn't be driving on it. The last thing that I want to point out, I am a mother of 3. I drive on these roads. What I don't want to see is alcohol combined with, I think offering non-alcoholic beverages at a bar is awesome. Having a safer alternative, we've already seen that having a safer alternative in legal state has reduced drunk driving deaths. Mm-hmm. You combine them, and there is a synergistic effect where you have half a glass of wine, and then you switch over to that non-alcoholic beverage, and you are behaving like a dangerous, stumbling drunk. You fall down, you hit your head, is the best thing that can happen. The worst is you get behind the wheel of your car and plow into a family of 5. And that has happened. Yes. And that's what I'm worried about, is they're not considering the true concerns about cannabis because they're so busy focusing on the stupid shit that doesn't kill people.
Dale, you know why I think things have really taken off in Minnesota from my reading? And there's actually a story I just put in the Discord, Jason. If you could put that up to the chat, that would be great. The Minnesota brewers are all behind this because they've needed something to differentiate themselves after COVID. And what they believe is that these THC beverages has saved their industry. So let me just read this for a second. The Minnesota Brewers Conference on March 22nd in Minneapolis was abuzz with stories on how hemp-infused beverages help breweries survive the gauntlet of the craft beverage market.
Dr. Mark, I apologize. Can you repeat that for Jason one more time? Because Jason needs to hear that.
Say that again.
These brewers in Minnesota are behind this, and that's how they got the legislation put through, and that's how they're able to carry these hemp-infused beverages at liquor stores, and now they're going to serve them at bars, and they're going to have kegs that you can take home and have a keg party with a cannabis beverage. I mean, this is, like Dale said, you know, someone could drive home from a bar and kill somebody after they've been drinking tequila all night, or they could drive home from a bar and stop at the fast food place to get something to eat after drinking some cannabis beverages. Which would you rather have on the road? You know, it's known that alcohol leads to intoxication that completely incapacitates you from being able to operate a car, which is the most dangerous thing that we all do every day, right? The most dangerous thing we all do every day, no matter what you do, right? You driving a car is the most dangerous thing we do. So if you think about it, right? I mean, if cannabis led to, you know, driving impairment, we'd be dead by now, right?
It leads to people driving slower with both hands on the wheel in the lane.
Yeah, that is true. Studies have shown that people that consume cannabis and drive, they're more likely to stop at a stop sign longer, or, you know, drive slower, as opposed to alcohol, where it makes you go faster and
just stop at the stop sign and don't go forward.
What stop sign?
You know.
I think what this shows, I mean, Jason, I know you're not a big fan of the beverage sector.
I'm not.
And certainly,
he's a denier. I'm
not a denier
that it saved the microbrewery industry in Minnesota. When we read that story,
I'm ecstatic for them. I'm ecstatic for them. Okay, I'm ecstatic. There's lots of Americans.
Are you admitting it?
No, I'm not. I'm not admitting that. No, I'm just saying that I'm excited that all those people still have their jobs. They're still able to provide for their families. I think that's a great thing. But do I think that the beverage industry is going to take off like all these speculators out there speculate? No, not a chance in hell. Not on its best day.
I don't know, Jason. This buds for you. They're all set to go, man. Think about it.
That's cute.
You know, here's the thing I would say, Jason.
Too bad no one drinks Bud Light anymore.
I agree with you on some level that I like consuming cannabis, and I like just my drink to just be a regular drink,
Yeah.
like iced tea or water. I don't need cannabis in my drink.
Exactly.
If I have good, tasty nugget and I got good, tasty concentrates, I don't need a cannabis beverage. But if you're in a market where that is restricted, and how you can get your cannabis buzz is by drinking a seltzer,
Look,
I'm fine with that because
the
they're
trap
limited
is just
because
going to
of
continue
prohibition.
to thrive, Dr. Mark. The trap.
Well,
if they live in a market,
mean,
if they live in a place that they can't access, they're not going to be like, oh, well, since we can't have a smoke today, let's go have a drink. That's not reality.
Let's say you don't drink at all, but you're going to the bar and you have a bunch of friends that go to the bar. You can go have a low THC beer or beverage that is on tap at the bar. You can still smoke.
Yeah, but you could, but most of those people are like tyrants about their sobriety in the sense to where they're going to view that cannabis
You're
beverage.
generalizing. There's no data behind that.
That's an average.
And as the designated driver for life for most of my life,
I'm not talking about designated drivers.
Why not? We would like a tasty beverage too.
Because how Rico is putting it, he's making it sound like the people that would be consuming this would be people that were former alcoholics. That's how he's framing it.
I didn't say that.
That's how it came across.
Would choose alcohol if it weren't prohibited to choose cannabis. The reason alcohol took off is because it was the legal alternative. And so folks are just now discovering that there are beverages that make them feel more social, that make them feel good, that are not alcohol based. And it's going to take years for people to recognize that. And actually, my story is going to touch on why some people will never be that person. They're never going to like the experience that they have with cannabis because of their DNA.
Ooh. And you know, I'm just saying, man, like plenty of people don't drink. And less people are drinking like every year. And you can go enjoy the game at the bar with your friends who do drink and not feel like you're left out. That's all I'm saying, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
It's an option.
Well,
it's another option. And shout out to Minnesota on this bill. Like I agree with Dr. Mark that other the crazy draconian bullshit they put in there too. But shout out for Minnesota for actually following the data, because they are a beer drinking state, and their microbrewery industry was on a lifeline. It was on the ropes, man. It was about to be done, and these Republicans who accidentally pushed forward the bill allowing them to have low THC edibles and drinks saved an industry. And there were these microbreweries and these microbrewers that actually converted everything to low THC drinks, and they made millions off of that. So big shout out to Minnesota on that.
Yeah,
I just can't.
Hops is the cousin to cannabis. For those of you that don't know,
that's true. And you know, the one thing though, I'm gonna crack up about, okay, is because you know something's gonna happen, and then they're gonna start creating some new legislation, and then all of a sudden, all the bars everywhere are gonna be forced to have these little markers on the side of them that's like your little 2 milligram marker, your 5 milligram marker on all of the beverages that they serve any cannabis in. That's going to end up happening, and all of those bars are going to end up having to comply.
Okay.
Do they do that with ethanol? That's an alcohol. Like, do you have to measure your martini?
Well, I'm just saying how all beverages are currently served, Dr. Mark, is that they have to have that ratio in the container, and if it's a stronger one, then it has to have the lines as to where that potency is basically.
Yeah. So Jason, so just real quick. So a couple of years ago, most cannabis beverages not only tasted like shit, but they all lost potency on the shelf. So you ever try cleaning your bong out with water? Right, doesn't work too well. Right, cannabinoids.
It depends on how dirty.
Soluble.
It depends on how dirty your bong is, Dr. Mark.
So they have to be emulsified. And can you make a stable cannabinoid emulsion? Yeah. Making one that tastes good, that's the key. And the companies that basically have developed that technology has had a couple years now to get their act together, and that's why beverages today actually taste a whole lot better than they tasted just a handful of years ago. And the other thing I can tell you is that they're not losing potency to the side of the can. Now, it really depends on what the milligram dose is, but again, most of those low ones, like around 5 or 10 milligrams, those test pretty good. So, and they're stable, and they taste good, and they get you loaded. End of story. You don't need really a 100 milligram beverage.
I'm just telling you,
even if they put some regulation out there like that, Jason, you know what? Like, who cares?
I'm just saying, I'm gonna find it funny. I'm gonna find it.
It's a good thing.
I'm gonna be amused by it.
The manufacturers of those labels are gonna make more money too. So
those aren't gonna be labels. Those can be the manufacturers of the glassware.
Okay, they'll make money. Why are you mad? Why are you hating on this, man?
I'm not hating. I just think I'm just finding humor in it, bro. I'm just finding humor in it. And I'm going to continue.
The investment required for a canning line is significant. It's huge. That's why beverages do make a play towards big beverage, because they've already sunk that cost into the canning lines. They already know how to make beverages. Adding a THC SKU on their production floor isn't going to be a big thing. So yeah, big beverage is very interested in this.